Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, Silver Hill. And in this video today, I'm going to talk about something that I've never shared before, and someone could say it's probably one of my greatest regrets in life, and maybe it's that. It's basically, I could save you 40 years of your life. If you're young, you listen to this and you'll get an idea of perhaps what to avoid. When I started out, I was young, I was very idealistic, had very strong views and values in the world. And I was also very creative and very artistic. And to these days, I remain somewhat artistic and creative, but my values have changed over the years, for the better, actually. So what I'm going to tell you in this video, so often you'll find all these really encouraging and, well, it's not that this video is not encouraging. It's not that at all. Is it a warning? Perhaps. Is it saying that you can't have a good life unless you do it this way? Well, there's a bit of that here. And so I want to be kind of straight with you right at the beginning. And it's basically, if I had to do it over again, this is what I'd do. A lot of people say you should go after your dream. You know, that's what really matters. Follow your bliss, they used to say. Obviously, that is not a good idea. And I'll tell you why. Because if we took the word and the term bliss for what it really means, we would see that bliss does not put food on the table. Because your bliss, to be in a state of just detachment from everything, as if you're laying on the beach for the rest of your life, is a sure way to end your life, actually. You can't go on vacation every day. Now, before you judge quickly where I'm going to go with this video, I want to tell you that it's really coming straight from my heart. And it's something that I'm very reluctant to share. I've always been, just like my parents before me, a very, very hard worker. And whatever I set my mind to do, whether it was for an employer or for myself or for someone else, I did the very best I thought I could do. Yeah, everybody has their days, you know, where they're not feeling well or whatever. But overall, I put my best into whatever I did. Now, a few things you should know from the get-go is that I suffered from social anxiety, generalized anxiety, very strongly. Way more than I ever thought that I would. And what happened was that influenced a lot of the things I did and the person I became. Because it wasn't until my later teens and early 20s that I even got to think that perhaps there was something quote unquote wrong with me. That I was having anxiety attacks in public places, that I was feeling panicky all the time. And a lot of times I would run to some safe place to get away. I don't know what I was running from. But yeah, and often that would be like going to a washroom that was very private. And that way I could kind of just hide for a bit and try to collect myself. And then eventually that whole thing actually led right back to my even feeling. When I felt anxiety, I started to associate it with going to the washroom and maybe perhaps the need to go to the washroom. So yeah, like, it's really hard to explain, but it started when I was 6 years old, and I was put on a bus, a school bus, and sent off to a school which I'd never been to before. And we lived in a very rural area and a very rural community. And, well, actually there was no community. The neighbor was a few miles away down the road, and it was just my mom and dad and me at first, and my grandparents just lived right across in the same yard. And that was very formative for me, that time in my life, that, you know, I had no exposure to young children, and I didn't start my going to school until I was about 6 years old, because my birthday fell later in the year. So what happened was, this would cause panic attacks when I was coming home on the way in the school, and I would panic. And as the school bus went miles and miles through the back of the woods, I felt the anxiety build that I wanted to get off the bus. And then it got to a point where I sort of outsmarted the bus driver, but did damage to myself. And it was that I told the bus driver I had to get off and pee really bad. So I would torment him so much that he'd stop the bus, and that would stop my anxiety attacks. But then at the same time, I'd go out in the local bushes, you know, yeah, sort of like that. It was a very rural area, and whether I had to pee or not, I'd stand there. So this, of course, back then, this was the early 60s, and there was no access to psychologists or children's psychologists. And, you know, when you went to school, there was nothing like that. Not at the school I went to. And my parents, they didn't even go with me to the school on the very first day. So there I was propelled out into the world. Anyways, this is just to say that these things do affect us, and they do affect our decisions later in life. But the thing that I would tell anyone now and save them years and years of trouble is going to shock you. As I got older, I started to think of, well, what is the purpose in life, right? I was raised in a very religious family, Christian, actually fundamentalist, well, more evangelical and fundamentalist. And so basically living for God is the most primary thing. So combined with my social anxiety and the you know, the need to have some purpose in life, and to sort of keep me away from social things where I had lacked quite a bit of control, is what I did was I went to very heavily involved in the church, and then later on I accepted the faith, and I went right in. I went 100% in on everything, and that's where I put my life. So what happened was, being creative too, my other option was either a religious vocation or one that's artistic. And so I found out much later, this is quite abbreviated versions, because even in college, even as a young man in college, it was a Bible college, by the way, and I do not recommend anyone goes to a Bible college, because you're really spending a lot of money for no reason. It's things you can just learn on your own by reading books. And they say if you're going to be a minister, you should go to a Bible college. But here's the thing. You may go through your life and discover that maybe what you thought was true and what you believed in as being so sure, such a sure thing and so real, maybe it'll turn out to be really not as real as you thought. And there you'll be, as so many other people have attested to, in a vocation, a calling, and you won't believe it anymore. And then you'll be like, well, what do I do for a living? Well, let's just see. I've got 4 years of Bible school, 3 years of seminary, and you're looking at a retail job or flipping burgers, as they say, because there's really not much, and you've spent all that money. So that's something that plays into this as well. On the other hand, if you say to yourself, and you're in a situation like my own, you say, well, I'm artistic, that's where I should go. Well, art is a funny thing, because art, very much like religion, is something that is, education is good, but it depends on where you're going to get that education and what that education will allow you to do. In other words, if you spend 4 years in fine art school, you've learned how to draw well. You haven't learned how to sell your paintings. So that's a whole different story. In fact, many people become successful artists and make lots of money, or at least enough, without an education in the arts. So if you've spent all this money going to an art school or something like religion, then those two things which you might say are in the humanities, both of those things really don't add up to moneymakers in the world. I mean, it's very hard. I mean, often you'll notice that a lot of people that end up in these schools and colleges, like art schools or Bible colleges, what they do is they end up being employed. They end up becoming staff where, they graduate from. Now, here's the thing. Not everybody is going to get a job there. And unless you're the type of person that goes hook, line, and sinker for all the policies of that place, if you start seeing anything wrong or anything you don't agree with, then suddenly you're going to feel like, I don't belong here. And you're going to feel like you're going in every day and faking it just because maybe there's something you don't like. And maybe you start finding that this place is just sort of, it's all about towing the line to get ahead. This is something that's kind of too deep to get into. But to save you a lot of time, and here's what I'm going to get right to the point. If you're young, if you're in your 20s, your 30s, even still your 40s, and I suppose in your 50s and 60s, you'd have to kind of rearrange your thinking. It sucks. You think it sucks. I see people, I listen to young people online on the YouTube channels, and they think their life sucks at 20 or 30. And they think, if I haven't arrived at 30 years old, it's over. No, that's not true. You still got time. But the feeling you're having is sort of an accurate feeling, or the thought feeling you're having. Because there will come a time in your life where it gets very extremely hard to change tracks. I remember back in Bible school, there was this famous pastor, and his name was, well, not in Bible school, but we used to study from the 1800s, late 1800s, and his name was C.H. Spurgeon. And he talked a lot about, he was a Baptist anyway, and he preached. But one of the things he said, one of his sayings I still remember, is just from my own personal readings, was about coming to a crossroads in your life was like back in the old days when there was old carriages and the horse and buggies, and they had muddy, wet roads that they had to travel on. They actually had signs, I think it was in England, where the sign would say at the beginning of a very rutty road, it would say, make sure you choose your ruts wisely. And that's because you're not going to be able to jump those wheels out of those ruts. So the sooner you choose the better rut, the easier life's going to be. So I grew up in a time, and maybe you have too, maybe millennials went through this, I'm not sure, but I'm in my early 60s. And I kind of grew up in a time, it was kind of a Gen X thing too, so less than a boomer, more Gen X. Because the boomers, they had it easier when it came to jobs. You could always fall back and do something. Without any, my dad, for example, not a boomer, but older than that, he had no formal education, but he provided for a family of 4, including himself. And, we never went without. We had the odd vacation and got good toys at Christmas and all that. And so the thing is, people are going to say, and in my generation, they would say things like, well, to follow your bliss, or do the thing that makes you feel full, the thing that gives you this, there's something out there, you're a round peg and you're going to find that round hole, and you're going to find it, and it's going to fit, and it's going to feel so good. and life is going to be perfect after that. And it's not. That's not how it works. You know, there is no perfection in this life. I can tell you that right now. Life isn't perfect. It has all kinds of different ups and downs, and things, trouble's going to come your way, and things are going to be thrown at you. And yeah, here's the thing you can learn in this short video that you're just, you know, you must learn it right now. The trick to life is not to find, and this is especially tempting for artists, I say, and people of religion, humanities, or whatever, maybe those with a history degree. I'm not saying you shouldn't do those things, but the thing is, the most number one thing you're going to need as you get older is money. And you can Disneyify your life and think Mr. Charming or whatever is going to come along, or, you know, the beautiful princess, or the job, the career, the calling, and you're going to go off to your cottage in the woods, whatever, and everything's going to be hunky-dory. That's not the way it goes. And as long as we live in this look, I'm sorry. It's like you can rebel and you can say all you want. Well, this isn't the way it should be. There shouldn't be this capitalistic society. We should all have universal basic income and spend our days doing the things that make us whole and feel whole. It's not the reality. It's not the reality. That's the thing. That is the thing right there. And I want to let you know, there was so many times. I remember one time I used to work. I had all kinds of jobs, but a lot of them were labor-based jobs with no skill. Why is that? Because when I was young, I didn't get a trade, or I didn't get into something that had some consistency of decades or work that I could get paid for to do a good job. That plus my anxiety was very hard to do, but I should have dealt with that when I was younger. I didn't deal with that until I was in my early 40s, actually, before I started getting counseling. I took some medication for a while. So what I'm going to tell you, and I hope it's going to save you a hell of a trouble, is don't think of your life as some special calling, some special thing. If you want to, I got to tell you, it's like, I remember my youngest son one time. We lived paycheck to paycheck, as many people do today. I had 3 kids as part of the reason. But I love them all. They're great kids. They're all grown up now. But I can still remember my youngest son having guests over, and they were coming in the back of the door for a birthday party. And here's the thing. My stupid employer at the time didn't pay us for the work, and I think I was working all night shifts cleaning. I was kind of a lead. Well, I was the lead man on cleaning, doing, you know, scrubbing and burnishing and buffing and all those things that are required by society, but society doesn't want to pay much for them. So I was kind of raised in having that sort of religious background, that in a way it was sort of this asceticism that I used to think. Asceticism is kind of like you beat yourself up so that you'll kind of feel better. You know, you make yourself, prostrate yourself before God. You kneel, you be submissive, you don't look out for yourself. If you do the things of the Lord, He's going to look after you. All these kinds of things. And really, in reality, that's not how it works. Because every time the Lord is involved, it's just something that happens by your own doing, or by chance, or by friends, or community members, or family, and they help you out and they give you money. Anyways, I can still remember that feeling I had many decades ago when the kids all started showing up for my son's birthday, and my wife and I had to tell them, tell the mothers and stuff, sorry, you got to go back home. We just couldn't do it today, and we just didn't get paid in time because didn't have a salt. And you always say, well, this could happen to anybody, but it will definitely happen to you. It most likely happen to you if you're searching for all these sort of, I'm going to get paid streaming, or I'm going to be a YouTube star, or, things like this, or I'm going to be an artist. Well, it's okay. You can be an artist. But the thing is, you're going to have to learn on your spare time what people want to buy. And there's no sense going into commercial art. That's another thing. I was going towards commercial art, and I was training for that. And I did, after I left the so-called ministry, I decided, no, this is not for me. And I'd already had some debt, and I already started thinking, well, I got all this debt, and if I go into a church and I don't agree with what I'm supposed to, I'm going to have to say what they want me to say because, you know, different church policies or whatever. I have to do what they tell me. It's not about just reading the Bible and saying this is what God says. And no, you got to say what they want you to say, or you don't get a paycheck. So I started thinking halfway through, so I'm going to come out with all these student loans, and I won't even still be doing the Lord's work. I'll be just saying what these people, you know, to keep a job. So I am glad I made those decisions to get out. And I made all the right decisions that way for me. But the problem is I had nothing to fall back on. No official vocation, no trade. You know, if you have a trade, you can say, well, there's no jobs in my area. You have to go. You have to leave your area. You have to leave your parents, your grandparents, or whatever. You have to do that. And, you know, when you get a trade, because you know what? Because money is important. Annual income is important. And I've lived my whole life. And I got to tell you, there are times, and there still are, days of depression where I'm doing all right, but, you know, just getting by some days. And it's tough. It's tough because I'm getting kind of, my body went through a lot of changes when I was doing the heavy lifting in the work, in the cleaning business, in the schools, in the department stores, and working on concrete floors. And yeah, I've had some surgeries and things partly because of that. But so I just want to save you some time in your life and let you know that when you're young and you're starting out, you may think, well, yeah, I know I need money. Yeah, but you really do. I mean, you really do. You sit down, you go through those career pamphlets or those websites, or you talk to people that you know are in careers. I'm talking plumbers, carpenters, whatever it is that pays and will pay and will always be needed pretty much somewhere. You do that. You find the thing you can tolerate. That's the thing. You don't say it's not going to be a perfect job. You're not looking for perfection. You're not, because there isn't any. There isn't. And there's so few people that find that, and they're not necessarily happy. You know, they're not. There's people, billionaires lack happiness is something that comes from inside. But it is true, and I'll tell you right now, that as much as happiness comes within inside of us, having external pressures like not having a good income, not being able to pay your bills, living paycheck to paycheck, or more, you're in for a hard life, and it's hard. And you know, you try to find somebody that is going to share that journey with you, and you can see the pain in their face, the years that it go by, and you haven't been able to do maybe the things you really wanted to do with them, to travel, whatever. And I know that this is it. You can say, well, bad things people are going to get cancer, people are going to get sick. Yeah, that's going to happen. And you know what? It's worse when you've got no money. So right now I'm going to save you a lifetime of pain and agony. And I'm going to tell you, go after that thing, train for that thing, and study hard. Whatever it is you can tolerate, whatever that thing that is naturally you're sort of inclined to, but maybe it's not the thing you think is, it's something underneath you, something below who you are. Maybe you're a great gifted musician and you know you can write songs, but you're not making money from them. Go first for that structure. Yeah, we hear all the time about parents who have said the same thing. Parents who have said the same thing and their kids became comedians and they're famous, or they've become movie stars, or, you know, Taylor Swifts of their time. But it's because what's being amplified is you're seeing the cream of the crop. You're seeing those few people that do make it out of the billions of people who don't, quote unquote, make it. Most people are living a normal life, and I'm gonna tell you, you're gonna want that money. You're gonna want to buy and you know what? And here's another thing. If you don't go down that route of money, or you don't sort of concentrate on those things, you're gonna have to, well, you're still gonna need this. You're gonna have to buy a little piece of land and start homesteading and raising chickens and whatever, and you're still gonna need money. But you're gonna need something that when the rainy day comes, you can have it. And I'm telling you right now, you don't leave your job for art, for religion, for things like this. That I know there's different people in the world. I know that. I never felt I would fit in, but I ended up doing things anyway, like working on as a laborer in a shipyard, and going into some places where I probably got asbestos in my lungs. But you know, you can avoid all that by simply getting a really good trade, and then the path ahead will, at least that one problem. And look, I know I've had friends, because I was in that spot, and I know the hardships they went to too. And it gets hard towards the end. I'm not going to get specific, but I'm talking about early deaths. I'm talking about diabetes leading to a limb being you know, taken off or whatever. And it's hard. It's hard when you don't have the money, and your quality of life goes down, and you're not eating good food, and you don't have shelter, and you're always worried about these things, you know, where the next dollar is going to come from, or you're packed and crammed in, living with a half a dozen people in a small apartment. You know what? It's a long journey, but the sooner you choose something that's like a trade, that you know pretty much, and I know it's tough now, you're going to say, yeah, but the trades and everything are changing too. But pretty much there's going to be plumbers, and there's going to be carpenters, and there's going to be those basic things. Pick the one that you think you can tolerate, and put your best effort into it. Do your painting, your music, all your religion in the evening, whenever you're off. And I'm telling you, it'll save you a ton of heartache. Okay, we'll see you for now. Thanks for watching. I hope this did you some good. It's kind of a bit of tough medicine, I know. But if I could go back in time, I wish somebody would have made a video like this for me. Okay, you guys, you have a good one. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.